indeed. Well, let's move on to Germany then. And overnight, there have been protests because of a deal that was done on Wednesday between the CDU and AFD. Now, the CDU has a protocol in place where they always said they would under no circumstances do any kind of deal with AFD in order to win a vote in the Bundestag. But in this case, they did do the deal. Well, lots of people have been very upset about that, including Olaf Scholz, including Angela Merkel, and so on. In fact, that was just a sort of intention on Wednesday. The actual legislation is supposed to come to the Bundestag today, so we'll see what happens. But lots of people complaining about this. But Elon Musk has been talking somewhat about the AFD as well, supporting them and whatnot.
Yeah, he has. I mean, just on what you just said, Mike, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of something really extraordinary in Germany, like maybe a coalition between the Christian Democrats and AFD.
Well, we should make the point that the Christian Democrats do find themselves in a very similar position in Germany as the Tories do in the UK. So Tories under pressure from reform snapping at their heels, AFD doing a very good job of snapping at the heels of the CDU as well. So yes, at least they have the opportunity of a coalition there. There's less chance of that in this country.
And it would allow them to retain the chancellorship as well.
Right.
And so, I mean, I wouldn't rule that out. But so what's Elon Musk's interest in Germany, in the AFD? He's been deployed there. He sort of did this appearance, piped in here at their big rally. And the idea he's pushing here, that he was pushing, was interesting. He's saying, be proud to be German. He's already, reclaim your Germanness and so forth. And so this is kind of Elon Musk's kind of identitarianism that he's kind of running with, and he's trying to export this kind of right wing, or what he's calling conservative, but it's more than that. It's definitely nationalist themes that he is basically trafficking in. So it's interesting that he's pushing all the culture war issues, though, with Germany. Now, why is Germany unstable politically? Does it have anything to do with the fact that it's also unstable economically?
Right.
I think so. I mean, the German economy is in the toilet, proverbially, compared to where it normally is. Why is it in the toilet? So while Elon Musk, who is an employee of the U.S. government, I'm told now, he's an agent of the U.S., he's in Germany meddling in their elections.
Sorry, was this not something we were criticizing Russia for?
Oh, the Russians, yeah, but the Russians. So he's an American basically dangling money in front of political parties in Britain, in Germany, and other countries too. And he's telling them what they need to do. He's telling them how they need to feel. He's pushing the culture war issues. So he's pushing, obviously, emotive issues, immigration, grooming gangs in Britain, a German identity in the kind of white nationalist vein. Let's be honest. That's kind of where he's at on that. Okay. So all the culture war issues. But that's not what Germany's big problem is. Germany's big problem is the sovereignty issue. And this is the one Elon Musk is not talking about, because Germany has been occupied militarily by the United States for decades now. Germany can't even decide what it can have in terms of its own foreign policy. The U.S. decides where Germany can buy its energy from. They're deciding who Germans can sell their products to. There's a sovereignty problem here. And Elon Musk is not talking about this. He is gaslighting. He's saying, look over here at these issues. We'll give you the culture war issues in America, but don't protest against us. And Germans should have got the message when the Nord Stream pipeline was blown up, okay? I mean, at that point, that's the wake-up call that should have happened. And is Elon Musk mentioned Nord Stream once? No. It is the single biggest consequential act of international terrorism in Europe in history. And you will not hear a guy like Elon Musk say a word about it, okay? So I'm questioning why he's been dispatched, who he's actually working for. And by the way, he's very chummy with the CEO of Axel Springer, that media group, right, which is very much in league with Israel. So Israel is backing the AFD in a huge, huge way. The Israeli lobby want the AFD in power. Is that why Elon was dispatched to work on Germany? This is an obvious question here. Or is he just doing this out of the kindness of his heart because he wants to de-woke the world? Personally, Mike, the woke issue has already been defeated. We're talking about the big boy issues now. This is the adults table: sovereignty, Brexit for Germany, NATO, U.S. military occupation, World War III. These are big issues. Elon Musk doesn't want to talk about any of them. So this is where I see this issue.
Okay, but where does that take us then?
Well, this is just an example of Germany real quickly. The U.S. and they've got Germany hooked on the Green New Deal. They got them to shut down their nuclear power plants, shut down their coal plants, and the U.S. can at any time pull out of the Paris Climate Accords. They can pull out of all these international climate regimes, and they just did. Look at this. And has Europe? No. So I'm beginning to feel like this has been a trap at the Trilateral Commission level, in the U.S. level, to lure the Europeans into this environmental boondoggle and then basically pull the rug out from under them. And isn't that not what's happened in the last couple of years? So, watch Trump, watch what he does.
Well, you mentioned Nord Stream, Patrick.
Well, speaking of Nord Stream, there are some interesting developments along this line here. We've got an exclusive, which I invite people to go read at 21stcenturywire.com. This is by Jeffrey Brodsky, who was on site. He did one of the first reconnaissances with underwater drones at the Nord Stream site, along with Eric Anderson, a great Scandinavian engineer. And so let's take a closer look at this story and see what might be here. So what is this about? Well, General Valery Zaluzhny, he's the former head of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Ukraine's highest ranking military officer at the time of the Nord Stream attack, is currently the ambassador to the UK, is not immune from prosecution, say legal scholars, bringing to light a crucial omission in mainstream media reporting as new revelations reinforce the idea of a U.S. cover-up. So the point of this article, Mike, is that whether you believe this Ukrainian diver story or not, it has opened a potential can of worms diplomatically and legally. And we have to now revisit the whole issue of how and why Zaluzhny, of all people, a barroom brawler, was made Ukrainian ambassador to Britain. Let's just take a look at that for a moment here. This is a photograph. This is from the article itself. There's Zaluzhny there, I believe, at the embassy with his commission there. So did the British bring him in to protect him? Because he has immunity from prosecution as a diplomat, and he should be deposed in Germany. If they're running with this Ukrainian super soldier diver team story, the Andromeda yacht story, then Zaluzhny technically was the person who gave the order. So he would be the first one to be prosecuted, but you can't touch him because he's in London.
Right.
So, but there's legal loopholes to this story that actually he is not immune from prosecution. And this is a fantastic legal analysis by Jeffrey Brodsky that delves into 2 or 3 of these loopholes. And we have international legal scholars that we've consulted for this story. And there seems to be a unanimous agreement that no, he's not immune from prosecution. I mean, this is potentially a uncomfortable little snag for Zaluzhny. That's whether you believe in the Ukrainian story, diver story or not, is beside the point. This is part of a bigger geopolitical chess match now.
Right.
So I find this to be incredibly interesting. So speaking of Nord Stream, now who's involved in Nord Stream? Does this have anything to do, this story, with Greenland? Just to remind people here, Donald Trump making the big play for Greenland. This is a Danish territory, autonomous region under the rule of Denmark, the Kingdom of Denmark. So what was this all about anyway? And you have to ask yourself, look at this picture here, Mike. Donald Trump is pushed hard right out of the gates, even before he was sworn in at Denmark, wanting to take Greenland. What was that about? Does Denmark have any leverage over Donald Trump in the United States? That's an interesting question, isn't it? Well, it just so happens 2 days ago, this announcement comes. Denmark is going to allow the Russians back into the pipeline. They just announced this 2 days ago, to work on plugging the leaks, the potential gas pockets in there. They're going to basically plug off the sides, but they're going to allow this team from Nord Stream Aggie 2, which is a division of Gazprom, which is listed in Switzerland, access to the area to do essential work for environmental safety reasons and so forth. The timing of this is extraordinary. Denmark.
Is there the opportunity for evidence gathering? A lot of time has gone past.
There's still quite from what you read in this article and from what I understand from this story, and reading some of the people who are Scandinavian journalists that are really on this story, there is quite a lot of evidence and data to be gathered still at the blast sites. And so what's interesting, this gets even more interesting here. This leads us to this story, and again, this is just today. Is Nord Stream 2 back in business? Well, what's this all about? Let's take a look. Is this going to... there's a permit that's been issued here. And so if you go to this article, which is right on our website at 21st Century Wire now, you'll see this is the Danish Energy Agency permit for work on the Nord Stream pipeline here. And if you go here, there is all of the information about the damage. Details that have not been seen before are in this. We translated it into English. There's a link to the original Danish version here. Intricate details of the blast site. And what's really interesting is the actual damage here. Look at this, how the pipeline, the dimensions, everything. So what you can, and what they're proposing is to use a remote vehicle to go with the diamond cutter to do the repair, to plug off the two ends, and then it may come back and rebuild the section in the future, possibly. But what you can do from this document, Mike, you can reverse engineer this operation by looking at the means and the methods and the technology that's available to fix it. You can kind of work out some of the unanswered questions about what was done and what technical equipment and remote vehicles could be used to actually do the job. And so this is stuff that is only really privy to people who work in the oil and gas industry. And this is a very difficult document to find. It's not in English. We managed to find it and translate it here. And we're sharing it with everybody at 21stcenturywire.com. So again, a hat tip to Freddie Ponton, a French journalist, for discovering this and sharing that with us on our website. So that's kind of an interesting thing, Mike. So this is all going on at the same time that this Greenland controversy. So has Denmark fired off a little quiet warning shot to Washington? We're just throwing that out there as a question. Could be, maybe it is, maybe it's not. And so there's a British angle to this, Mike. And, looking back at the Treaty of 1706, this is an article here at NPR. Well, actually, Britain has first dibs on Greenland. So if it comes to the crunch, we might, and you're going to like this. This is the old 1700 Union Jack. So this is actually Britain's to claim. If it's up for dibs, Britain has first dibs over the United States. So that's something, isn't it? So they could be flying the Union Jack in Greenland, not the American flag. Wouldn't that be something?
I'll believe that when I see it. But where does that take us then?
Well, just in the other point, and this is important, you heard about the funding being cut for Ukraine, and a lot of the funding was going to opposition media or pro-U.S. media through USAID. And I'm going to point to this great piece here by Kit Klarenberg, or a great thread, in fact. If you follow Kit on X, for those within the empire's inner core, the full seismic implications of Trump's aid suspension may not be fully obvious, but here in the Balkans, where USAID and National Endowment for Democracy has penetrated every sphere of public, political, and even daily life, the impact is absolutely monumental. So what he's done here is potentially pulled the plug on the whole soft power complex. Because whether you go to Bulgaria, Moldova, Ukraine, or in this case, the Balkans, as Kit's referring to, all of these media outlets that are supposedly independent are all being funded by the U.S. government. And those are all the regime change instruments in all of these countries to help spin up color revolutions and so forth. So all of that has been threatened inadvertently or not. is this one of Trump's master plans, or did he make a mistake? Because they did rescind part of this order to revoke federal grants. It was immediately reversed after 48 hours. I don't know if Mark has any comment on that, but so there could be some confusion here. Somebody stepped on someone's toes in Washington, but the point that Kit Klarenberg has made here is that this money keeps this whole idea afloat of democracy promotion in all of these different countries. And when you pull the funding, all these people don't have jobs, right. Basically. It's just an extraordinary story.
Any thoughts, Mark?
Not a great deal. I read up on Moldova.org just this morning, and I discovered in the process that Damon Wilson, formerly a big honcho at the Atlantic Council, which is basically NATO's intel arm, he's now with the National Endowment for Democracy, which, as Patrick mentioned, is kind of teamed up with USAID, a longtime CIA asset. And so in the best scenario, they're pulling the plug on soft power, or at least reducing its influence. But as Patrick noted, there's other nuances involved, and we can't quite read the tea leaves yet, but it's an interesting development.
Yeah, let's keep an eye on this. This is an interesting thread story here that Kit's brought up. But go ahead.
Yes. Keep pulling the thread.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mark. Now,